In this episode, we are focusing on one of the most important skills in cybersecurity that beginners often underestimate, which is the ability to explain security issues clearly to people who do not live inside technical systems every day. A lot of new learners assume that cybersecurity success depends mostly on tools, alerts, logs, and investigations, and all of those things do matter, but none of them matter as much if the people making decisions do not understand what is happening or why it matters. In real organizations, analysts and security teams are constantly translating technical findings into practical meaning for leaders, managers, project owners, and business partners. That makes communication a core part of the job rather than a side activity. If you can explain a security issue in plain language, connect it to risk and operations, and help another person understand what action is needed, you become much more effective than someone who is technically sharp but unable to make their thinking useful to others. One of the first things to understand is that non-technical does not mean unintelligent, uninvolved, or unimportant. It simply means the person you are speaking with does not spend their day thinking in terms of ports, processes, privilege escalation, or log sources. Their job may be leading a business unit, managing operations, coordinating projects, overseeing finance, handling customer relationships, or keeping an executive team informed. Those responsibilities are not lesser than technical work. They are different. When cybersecurity professionals forget that, their communication often becomes dismissive, overloaded, or ineffective. The better mindset is to assume that non-technical stakeholders are usually very capable people making important decisions under their own pressures, but they need security information translated into the language of business impact, operational risk, timing, cost, customer effect, and decision support. Once you respect that difference, your goal changes. You stop trying to prove how much you know and start trying to help another person understand what matters most. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A useful way to think about communication is that technical evidence answers one kind of question, while stakeholders often need a different kind of answer. An analyst may be focused on what happened on a system, which account was involved, which process started, or which indicator suggests malicious behavior. A stakeholder is often asking something else. Does this affect my team? Does it threaten customer data? Is the business disrupted? How urgent is this? What decision needs to be made right now? Can operations continue? What are the likely consequences if we wait? Those questions are not signs that the stakeholder lacks interest in security. They are signs that the stakeholder is trying to connect technical facts to organizational reality. Good communication begins when you understand that difference and shape your message accordingly. If you answer a business question with a flood of technical detail but no clear takeaway, you may feel accurate, but you have not actually been helpful in the way the moment required. That is why translation is such a central skill. Translation in cybersecurity does not mean simplifying until the truth is distorted. It means preserving the meaning while changing the language so that it fits the audience. Imagine you discover unusual outbound connections from a server after suspicious account activity. A purely technical description might be accurate, but not very useful to a department leader who needs to decide whether a business service should be paused or whether customers may be affected. A better version explains that a system appears to be behaving in a way that could indicate unauthorized activity, that the team is investigating whether sensitive information or core services are at risk, and that certain precautionary steps may be needed while more is confirmed. The technical truth is still there, but now it has shape and purpose. Translation is not about hiding details. It is about presenting the right details in a way that makes the next decision clearer instead of more confusing. Another key idea is that cybersecurity communication should begin with relevance, not background. Beginners sometimes feel they must start by explaining every technical concept that supports a finding before they reveal why the issue matters. That usually causes the audience to lose the thread early. A stronger approach is to begin with the point of consequence. What is the issue? Why should this person care? What part of the business, process, service, or risk picture is affected? Once relevance is established, supporting detail becomes easier to absorb because the listener now knows why they are hearing it. This does not mean every message must sound dramatic. In fact, exaggeration is one of the fastest ways to lose trust. It means you should lead with the practical meaning of the issue. If a vulnerability exists on a low-priority internal test system, say that clearly. If suspicious activity may affect a customer-facing platform, say that clearly too. People listen better when they understand the relevance of the information before being asked to carry the detail. Jargon is another major challenge, and learning how to manage it is part of becoming a credible security professional. Technical language is useful inside technical teams because it allows precision and speed, but the same language can become a barrier when used carelessly with other audiences. Terms like indicators, lateral movement, exfiltration, false positive, privilege escalation, and segmentation may be normal inside a security operations center, SOC, but they can quickly disconnect the listener if no explanation is provided. The solution is not to ban technical vocabulary entirely. The solution is to use it with discipline. If a technical term is necessary, briefly explain what it means in plain language, and then keep moving. If the term is not necessary, do not use it simply because it sounds impressive. Clear communication often comes from choosing ordinary words on purpose. The goal is not to impress non-technical stakeholders with security language. The goal is to make sure the meaning reaches them cleanly enough that they can understand the problem and respond appropriately. A very practical communication habit is to answer 4 questions early whenever possible. What happened? What does it affect? How serious is it right now? What should happen next? Those questions give structure to security conversations and help prevent rambling explanations that leave the audience unsure what they are supposed to take away. For example, you may explain that suspicious activity was detected on a specific system, that the team is evaluating whether the issue is isolated or broader, that there is currently no evidence of operational disruption but the matter is time-sensitive, and that the recommended next step is temporary containment while validation continues. That kind of structure is useful because it keeps the conversation grounded in action and impact rather than drifting into scattered facts. Many communication failures happen not because the speaker lacks knowledge, but because the speaker never organizes the knowledge into a form that helps another person think clearly. Structure turns information into guidance, and that matters a great deal in security situations where uncertainty is already high. Severity and urgency also need to be communicated carefully because they are related but not identical. A beginner may assume that a severe issue is automatically urgent in the same way for every audience, but context matters. Some findings are technically serious, yet well contained. Others may look moderate at first glance, but require fast attention because of exposure, timing, or business dependency. Non-technical stakeholders usually do not need a lecture on scoring systems. They need a grounded explanation of why this deserves attention now, or why it can be handled in a measured way without panic. This is one reason communication must stay anchored to context rather than raw labels alone. If you say something is critical, people will naturally ask what that means for the business today. If you say something can wait, they will want to know why that delay is acceptable. Trust grows when your explanation of urgency feels proportionate, consistent, and tied to operational reality instead of sounding like every issue is either a crisis or a non-event. Another important part of communication is knowing that different stakeholders need different versions of the same truth. A business executive may need a concise summary of risk, impact, decision points, and expected follow-up. A project manager may need timelines, dependencies, ownership, and likely disruption. An operations leader may need to know whether a service can remain available, what fallback options exist, and what support will be required from their team. The facts underneath can be the same, but the framing changes because the decisions change. This is not manipulation. It is audience awareness. Good security professionals do not give everyone the exact same speech and hope it lands. They think about what the listener is responsible for and what kind of clarity will help that person do their job. Once you understand that, communication becomes less about making one perfect statement and more about delivering the right kind of useful understanding to the right person at the right time. Metrics and dashboards can also be helpful with non-technical stakeholders, but only when the numbers actually support understanding. Beginners sometimes believe that adding more charts automatically makes a message stronger. In reality, metrics only help when they answer a meaningful question. A key performance indicator, KPI, or key risk indicator, KRI, becomes valuable when it shows whether the organization is improving, deteriorating, or carrying a level of exposure that should be noticed. If you present too many numbers without a clear story, the audience may become less informed rather than more informed. A better approach is to use a small number of measures that connect directly to decisions or trends. For example, a stakeholder may benefit from understanding whether unresolved high-risk issues are increasing, whether response times are improving, or whether a recurring pattern of incidents is tied to a business process that needs attention. Metrics should illuminate the message, not replace it. The number is rarely the point by itself. The point is what the number means for action, accountability, and organizational risk. Difficult conversations are part of cybersecurity, and this is where tone matters as much as content. Sometimes you will need to tell a stakeholder that a team ignored a recommendation, that a delay increased risk, that a process was weaker than expected, or that a business choice created more exposure than leadership realized. In those moments, bluntness without care can make people defensive, while excessive softness can make the problem sound less important than it is. The strongest approach is usually respectful directness. Name the issue clearly, explain the consequence, separate the problem from personal blame when possible, and focus on what needs to happen now. People respond better when they feel they are being helped through a problem rather than attacked for being near it. That does not mean avoiding accountability. It means presenting accountability in a way that keeps the conversation moving toward correction instead of turning into a contest over pride. Security communication is often most valuable when tension is highest, which is exactly why composure and fairness matter so much. Trust is built through consistency, and that applies strongly to how you communicate uncertainty. One of the biggest mistakes security professionals make with non-technical audiences is pretending to know more than they do because they fear sounding weak. In reality, people usually trust you more when you are honest about what is known, what is not yet known, and what is being done to reduce uncertainty. Saying that an investigation is ongoing does not weaken your position if you also explain what has been confirmed so far, what the current risk picture looks like, and when more information is expected. Overstating confidence is much more damaging than acknowledging uncertainty responsibly, because when later facts change the picture, credibility can drop quickly. Stakeholders do not need perfect certainty in every moment. They need reliable guidance. Reliable guidance often sounds like this is what we know, this is what we are still validating, this is why the matter deserves attention, and this is what we recommend while the picture continues to develop. Another habit that strengthens communication is using examples and comparisons carefully. Analogies can be very powerful with non-technical audiences because they bridge from something unfamiliar to something already understood. For instance, access control can be compared to giving people keys only to the rooms they need, and network segmentation can be compared to using doors and barriers inside a building so that not every area is reachable from every other area. These comparisons help people grasp the principle without needing to study the underlying technology first. The key word is carefully. A bad analogy oversimplifies the issue or introduces the wrong assumptions. A good analogy clarifies one part of the idea and then gets out of the way. Used well, analogies make communication warmer and easier to follow without making it childish. They are especially valuable when you need to explain why a control matters or why a seemingly technical issue actually has direct business significance. Preparation improves communication more than many beginners realize. Security conversations often go poorly not because the speaker lacks intelligence, but because they arrive with raw facts and no clear message. Before speaking to a non-technical stakeholder, it helps to think through a few essentials. What decision or understanding does this audience need from me? What is the most important takeaway? What terms should I avoid or explain? What concerns is this person likely to have? What recommendations can I defend if they ask what should happen next? This preparation does not need to be formal or lengthy, but it creates discipline. It reduces the chance that you will wander through details and accidentally bury the most important point. In many ways, communication in cybersecurity is like analysis itself. You are not just collecting information. You are selecting, organizing, and presenting what matters in a way that supports action. That is why strong communication often feels calm and clear. The clarity was built before the conversation began. By the end of this discussion, the most important lesson to carry forward is that communicating cybersecurity to non-technical stakeholders is not a softer or secondary skill. It is a professional skill at the heart of making security work useful inside a real organization. If you can translate technical findings into relevance, avoid unnecessary jargon, structure your message clearly, respect the audience's responsibilities, and speak honestly about risk and uncertainty, you become far more effective than someone who only knows how to talk to other technical people. Good security communication helps leaders make decisions, helps teams coordinate, and helps organizations respond with more clarity and less confusion. For a CySA Plus learner, that matters because analysis is not finished when you discover the issue. Analysis becomes truly valuable when another person can understand what it means and act on it. And that is exactly where clear communication does some of its most important work.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.